really comes on the heels of a number of things, which we can just kind of review together, just to collectively surface the context in the room. But first, let's actually open with a word of prayer. Do you want to open us maybe in a word of prayer? Let's look to God. Lord, thank you for your grace. Thank you for your goodness. Thank you for the social reversal that makes those who are made to be last in society first, and those who presume they are first to be last. We thank you for Mary's Magnificat, which talks about a time when the hungry are filled with good things and the rich are sent away empty. We thank you for Christ, who tells us that the good news is indeed good news to the poor, that you give sight to the blind, that you bind up those who are brokenhearted. God, we thank you for the holistic gospel, which calls us to fullness, abundance, and newness of life. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. So yeah, super excited to be with everyone today. As some grounding for our time together, we talk every Sunday about creating an equitable economy for all of God's creation, which is a way of talking about a society where everyone can thrive and have access to the things that we deserve, that we need. And as a way to fully flesh that out, a part of what we have done together starting in January is an MLK King Day teach-in, where we looked at the writings and the works of Reverend Doctors Carrie Day and Martin Luther King Jr. to provide some shared language and context for economic justice. Then on the following month in February, we did a Black Imaginations event where we looked at how dreaming can help us move beyond anti-Blackness and envision a world of public health, a world that is large enough, that is roomy enough to contain the fullness, the beauty of who we are. Then when it got to the next thing we did in that regard, I'm just trying to capture the timeline. We did our organizing training that Brittany and Trelawney led us in April, which was a wonderful time of getting grounded in, introduced to refreshers for some perhaps in one-on-ones, and also in power mapping and conducting root cause analysis. And for those who were able to join, it was just an incredibly energizing time. Some of those who were there may be with us, some may be joining us at a later moment in this, but just want to kind of run through some of our moments together. And that sets the stage for where we are now to have this conversation about the economic justice virtual forum. The last thing I just want to say on this is that I think it's important to just say a brief word about the arc and trajectory of this work having an anti-capitalist component, because it's a thread that in some ways I think we could argue is anticipated in the biblical text, although of course that's an agrarian, largely agricultural economy. You see in James 5 a clear push against wage theft in the context of that economy. You see in Acts chapter 2 and Acts chapter 4, folks holding all goods together in common, people putting according to their ability into a pot from which everyone can draw according to their need. We see in Deuteronomy 15 where it talks about there'll be no needy persons among you. And so these are clear ideals which when we talk about what justice looks like in our economic society, sometimes the bottom kind of falls out in those parts that grate against the current organization of our economy. But we can talk about various ways we can get there together today.
Absolutely. And so this is going to be, we're locking in today. A lot of times when we do our conversations, there's a desire for there to be a longer block of time so that our Q&A can be more robust and our small group time doesn't have to be rushed. So we're going to be together for a few hours today. So if you got your lunch or you got your breakfast or what have you nearby you, if you have your brunch, don't worry about it. You can eat, you can have your beverages or whatever while we're gathered together. This is a relaxed space. And I want to open this up with, initially we were trying to get a poet into the space. Chelsea, one of our members, had a great suggestion that sometimes it's helpful to frame these kinds of conversations through the arts. And so we don't have a poet today, but there is a tweet that has been trending the past few days that I think is really great context for where we are and what we're striving towards when we talk about creating an equitable economy for all of God's creation. So I just want to read this tweet. Many of you have probably already seen it. And then we're going to kick it over to our dynamic fellows who are going to get us going and kind of get us loosened up and ready to go. But there's a tweet that's been going viral today by a username by the name of Zandashi Brown. And this is the tweet. She posted it on May 18th. So earlier this week, it already has 21,000 retweets and a whole lot of folks who just said, "This is me." And she says, beginning of the quote, "I dream of never being called resilient again in my life. I am exhausted by strength. I want support. I want softness. I want ease. I want to be amongst kin, not patted on the back for how well I take a hit or for how many. Instead of hearing you are one of the most resilient people I know, I want to hear you are so loved, you are so cared for, you are genuinely covered." And so I think that's a powerful way for us to ground what an equitable economy for all of God's people looks like. It looks like a world where Black and brown people don't have to be patted on the back for being resilient, but we get to just exist in the fullness of who we are with our needs being met, not having to gauge our ability to thrive on how many hits we can take. And so, with that, I hope that that ethic can ground us in the world that we believe God has for us. And we're going to dive into some really great conversation together. So, with that, we're going to kick it over to our fellows for us to begin.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this Economic Justice Virtual Forum. I'm just going to give you all an agenda overview, and then we're going to do a warm-up activity to kind of get people, I don't want to get people's minds working. So for now, we're doing the kind of occasion, and then we'll do the warm-up. And then we'll take a 5-minute break at like maybe 10:35. And then we'll come back at 10:40. And then from 10:45, from 10:40 to 10:45, we'll do like community norms. And then that will lead us into our breakout groups. And our breakout groups will be approximately an hour. So there's 3 breakout groups. The first one will be COVID as an economic justice issue. We'll spend 20 minutes talking about that topic, and then we'll move on to affordable housing. We'll spend 20 minutes talking about that topic, and then we'll finally go into childcare and children needs, and we'll spend 20 minutes talking about that. So approximately 11:45-ish, we'll start, we'll take another break, and then we'll start our roundtable at probably 11:50. And this is a conversation with the pastors, and we'll just like ask them questions about DLE's vision for an equitable economy, their thoughts on the roundtable, the breakout discussions that we had, and then any other information that we think might be helpful for people to understand the vision and the goal of DLE. And then lastly, we'll have our kind of close, in which we'll do faithful next steps and then takeaways for everyone. And that should be the bulk of our time. as we spend during this Economic Justice Forum. And I'm going to pass it over to Brittany so that she can do the warm-up activity.
Thanks, Trelawney. Good morning, everybody. Super glad to be here with you all. I am getting ready to drop a link in the chat to a tool that's called Jamboard. And this is a tool that we're going to use throughout the day to do some real-time response. And so I'm going to drop this link and then give everyone just a few moments to be able to join us over on the Jamboard, because it's a collaborative whiteboard that we'll be using throughout the warm-up and then throughout the day. All right, so the first thing that I want to say, as you all are joining us over on this collaborative whiteboard, I wanted just to introduce you all to a few of the features of the board so that everyone is on the same page. To the left here, you have your toolbar. On the toolbar, you have a pen, an eraser, a select, a post-it, an image, a circle, a text box, and a laser. For the purposes of today, we're going to primarily use the pen tool, which you just click, select the color, and you can write. The eraser tool and the post-it tool, which is a sticky note. Choose your color, press save, and then drag to the board. We also will occasionally use this image board, which is where you select the image feature, and you can use Google image search. So I'm just going to put economic just for a test, and I will be able to add this image to my board. All right. Additionally, the last thing I want to show about this tool is up here at the top, you see 1 out of 3. That's letting you know how many frames there are in this Jamboard. And so if I go here and I toggle next frame, it takes me over to the next feature. Finally, I want to introduce the parking lot. So the parking lot here is a board that throughout the day, as you go throughout breakout sessions, as you go throughout even the warm-up activity, even if you're on break and you want to jot something down, this is the parking lot. This is going to be revisited primarily in our roundtable, but these are just questions, things that are stirring in you, ideas, things that you need answered about economic justice, about the forum. And you can feel free to use this at any time throughout the day, just adding a sticky note. So one of that might be example is what is the role of landlords in tenant rights. So say you're in the session and that comes up. And then I could just add that to the parking lot, and we will keep a check of this throughout the day. All right, so I see that several of you all are on our Jamboard. I'm going to give room for a few more, or time for a few more folks to join us over on our Jamboard before we do our first activity. And to kick us off, to make sure everybody's warmed up to using this feature, but also to start conversation, I want us to do this first Jamboard here with our probing question of what does economic justice mean to you? To center us as we're doing this, which I'll play a song, so we have plenty of writing time to do this. I want you to think about the DLE vision, which I've included here on the board. And that is that we envision a Jesus movement committed to Black lives, an equitable political economy for all God's creation, and a spirit-led mysticism that prioritizes personal and public health. The prophet's Micah enduring words focus as our centering image. A radical assembly of believers striving to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with God. This is something that if you attend DLE services or you watch them, this is something that is said literally every Sunday. And so we want to really put down some anchors in this vision as a whole, but particularly these kind of first three pillars, which are Jesus movement committed to Black lives, equitable political economy, especially for all God's creation, and then the spirit-led mysticism that prioritizes personal and public health. So just to recap, over the next 3 to 4 minutes, what you're going to take the opportunity to do is to populate this Jamboard with an answer to this question. What does economic justice mean to you?
This is the checkers game where
All right, so we're gonna go back over to our board and let's see what we have.
Brittany, you sound a little far away from me.
Can you hear me now? Is this better?
Little bit. It's still really low. I don't know if your volume is down or your mic is down.
Hold on. It might be because I was sharing my computer sound. Okay. Is this better? No? That's so odd. It was fine until I played a video. Okay. Hold on one second. Let me try something. Okay. So is that better? Any? Okay. Awesome. All right. So here we have our board. What does economic justice mean to you? And I'll just read some of these out. A society that doesn't force people to choose survival or pleasure. Poor people deserve pleasure even if they can't pay their bills. They deserve what they want and what they need. Fair. The first of the month doesn't bring anxiety around paying rent or mortgage. A society that doesn't determine human worth by wealth. All members of an economy are held to the same set of transparent rules and regulations. Economic justice means everyone having resources to live a sustainable life, free health care, not paying high prices for what God has provided for creation. For all people of color to have equitable distribution in wealth, political policy, and protection under the law, equal access and distribution of resources and services of society. So, what I want us to do in the chat is to go ahead now and take just a few seconds and maybe put in the chat what are some themes that you hear standing out or the C standing out on our Jamboard. what excites you about the possibility of economic justice for all God's creation? The possibility for everyone to be taken care of, emphasis on everyone. Yes, yes. Fair resources and affordable. Thank you, Trelawney. Awesome. God is glorified when everyone has what they need. Yes, yes, yes. Well, as I said, this jam board, I know there's some chat still coming in. The ability to model fairness and unification by any means necessary. That just came through to my DMs. I'm gonna copy it to the main chat. As I said, this Jamboard is living. It's a living document. So as you move throughout the breakout sessions today, just remember that it sits here. So if you want to come back to this or the parking lot, it is there for you to do that. So before we head into our break, I do want us to take a moment. Pastor Gabby mentioned earlier the role that art plays in sometimes giving us language that, or not even language, putting our language in another form that really helps us to connect these ideas that we have, these even theories of economic justice and what that might look like. It makes it a little maybe more relatable or more bite-sized. And so as we get ready to head into our break, I have a piece of art that I would like us to watch and then reflect on. What you're getting ready to see is a song by Charles Bradley, and he is backed by a band called the Minhan Street Band, and he is performing a song called Why Is It So Hard, live from Austin, Texas. So if you would just take some time to direct your attention to the screen for the video. And as the video is playing, the question that I'm going to be asking us to reflect on after the video is, what did the video stir in you, particular to the topic of economic justice? There's no right or wrong answer to this question. I just want you all to have it in the back of your mind as you are partaking in this piece of art. Or in the chat on our question, just your thoughts, your feelings after watching that video. And, what did it stir in you? What did it stir in you as we get ready to further explore the topic of economic justice? Also, feel free to use your voice into the space and unmute and audibly respond also to, how it felt to watch the video, what you are thinking, feeling, and what the video might have stirred in you.
It was just so embodied, like, I mean, a lot of times we talk about injustices in such a academic and conservative way of let me capture the details of everything and I'm well read and I'm this. And he was just the embodied anguish of trying to make it from Florida to Brooklyn to Poughkeepsie. Everywhere he goes, the same hardship follows him. So I've never seen that video before, but I just love that he wore it on his face. He sung it through his notes. He wore it in his body language, and it forces you to pay attention.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think that was probably my attraction to it as well. It's it wasn't very academic, right, or what we would consider to be, right, because it definitely is it's an artwork, right?
It was.
Yeah, yeah, great, awesome. Any other reflection?
It just felt like to me, like our souls were crying out through his rendition. And even I got that verse of scripture, the rocks are gonna cry out. It's like the rocks are crying out, our souls were crying out. And then I thought of, because of the horn section when it first came on, about one of my favorite social justice fighters, Fela Kuti.
Yes. Would you tell us a little bit about Fela Kuti for those that are on Facebook Live, or just like a 1-2 sentence primer?
Sure. So Fela was a justice fighter who was the son of a justice fighter. His mother was a social justice advocate. And he was a wild guy. He had a band that was kind of a African James Brown, and he used a lot of weed, and he lived on a compound. He was very controversial, but he was very in your face to the government. He did a protest where he brought coffins to the state capitol, right, and put them on the steps of the Capitol. I believe it was in Liberia.
Awesome. Thank you, Reverend Daniel. And then when the chat, I just saw Trillian say, I definitely feel the same. Why is it so hard? Yeah. I like that, Trillian. And also I like the refrain of the song, like him questioning his question to the establishment, to empire, to America, right? Like the land of the free, the land of milk and honey. I like the refrain that he kept putting a very systemic sense of systemic responsibility, right? It was the personal and the collective for me in the song was very key. That he was able to say, like, I'm experiencing this injustice, this ability, this hardness, but also I am understanding, right, that this is not the way it should be, and also that there are the powers that be are responsible, and that there is some responsibility to the state for this. And I think when we think about anti-capitalist economies, we have to be able to put responsibility where it lies. And so that said, I want to thank you all for participating there for our first warm-up. And it is 9:41. We're going to go ahead and start with the break, and we'll take a break until 9:46. So feel free to get up, stretch, refill your coffee, your tea, grab a snack. I just ate a bowl of grits off camera about 20 minutes.
Hold up now. Did you put sugar in your grits, or did you put salt in your grits?
I put sugar and butter in my grits.
Sugar.
Look, Chelsea put her camera on just to weigh in about how she makes her grits.
And so what I will say about it, I live in a house with one person that eats sugar. Well, two of us eat sugar, and my mom eats it with cheese and salt and pepper.
Somebody cannot stand now. Y'all gonna have to figure that out.
I mean, so I grew up eating them both ways, but sugar, like, so really I grew up eating it however my mother handed it to me, but I will say sugar is the true way, the true way. Anyway, that said, go ahead and enjoy your break.
Hey, may I make a request while we are enjoying breakfast? Brittany, there's some folks in the Facebook chat who missed the song. So while we're on break, can we play that song again?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
Welcome back. We are coming back from our break. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Melanie to give us our sentence overviews of each topic while I am assigning the breakout rooms.
Okay, so welcome back once again, and we're just going to go over one sentence overviews and then also community norms. So for COVID as an economic justice issue, in this topic, we're just focusing on COVID and how it has affected maybe you personally, someone you know, maybe like a group of people that you might know, and then just like any other kind of issues. So as a general kind of like topic points, you can talk about COVID and unemployment. We can talk about COVID and healthcare. We can talk about COVID and how we had like rent memorandums, how we They also did like stimulus checks, if you want to talk about that. So we're focusing on how COVID has affected the economy, and then also how COVID is an economic justice issue, and how they kind of amplify issues that were already present, but we didn't really speak too much on, or people were speaking on it, and then COVID just made it even worse. And then affordable housing, this can also like stem off from the COVID conversation, but we're talking about like the rent memorandums, the high rent prices in New York. We're talking about maybe tenants and actually finding housing and actually being able to, you know, apply to an apartment or find a house or a brownstone, or maybe like subleasing or finding a roommate. And then finally, for childcare and children issues, we didn't want to leave the children out. We know that as much as COVID has affected adults, and as much as we're talking about economic issues for adults, we know that if mama can't afford to put food on the table, then that affects kids as well. So we want to talk about those issues about mothers or parents affording childcare. We want to talk about school issues, about social distancing and what that looks like, and also maybe like disciplinary issues for people or children who have a hard time doing the virtual learning. And then also talk about virtual learning for kids and how that has been difficult for them. So just more like children issues, and thinking about, well, if I have nieces and nephews, what do I see them struggling with in this time? And how can we have a discussion about it to kind of help them maybe like create programs, or having the money to even have a laptop to do online schooling. And then for community norms, we want to make sure that everyone has enough time to speak in this space and let their voices be heard. So we ask that you keep your responses concise. And then if you spoke at least once, maybe wait until someone else who hasn't spoken yet speaks before you start again. And then always we want to make sure that we have respect for everyone's thoughts and opinions in this space. Those are our community norms in a one sentence overview of each of these areas. So we're gonna see if Brittany is ready for the breakout rooms, and then we're gonna get started.
Yes, ma'am. I'm getting ready to open them. So we will have 3 20 seconds. Okay, we will not. We will have 3 20-minute rounds, because 20 seconds is not nearly enough time to talk about these issues. And so you'll get to go to each breakout. So don't be alarmed if you're assigned a breakout that you're like, this is not necessarily my passion issue. Don't forget to utilize our parking lot, and you can take your own personal notes if you'd like to during our breakout sessions. We will start the clock for the 20 minutes at 9:55, just so we can be kind of on a minute. Someone from DLE will be in your breakout room to kind of guide the conversation. But this is like Pastor Gabby said earlier, this is a very relaxed space. Feel free to participate, enjoy yourself, and let us know if you have any questions or concerns. I'm going to go ahead and
real quick, Brittany, before you break us out, I just want to flag that we're also live tweeting today. So there are a lot of people who are not physically with us who will be going back and looking at what we're doing. And so we want to leave kind of a Twitter trail of conversation starters that will keep the conversation going. So our hashtag for today is DLE Economic Justice. And on Twitter, we are Double Love NYC. So if y'all start some conversations that, you know, there's some spillover nuggets that you want to capture, please drop them over there. We just began a thread a few minutes ago. And so we want to make sure that we are communicating on all cylinders so that this conversation, look, we want this conversation to go viral. Let's talk about what it means to have an equitable economy for all of God's creation.
all righty, here we go. And then I will. Ready. Welcome back. We're going to go live back on Facebook here in a minute. So what I wanted to give you an opportunity to do is we're going to take the next about 4 minutes and 30 seconds. 5 minutes, we'll say. I'm going to invite you back to the Jamboard. I've added a slide to the very end of the Jamboard. And what I want to invite you to do is to take some significant time reflecting on what these 2 sentence prompts. So the first is I learned, the second is I wonder, thinking about the breakout session that you just participated. But I also want to use this opportunity to invite you, if you needed to take a break post breakout session, this would be the time to do it before we jump in to our round table. And I'm going to also share another piece of art during this break. This is by art. This is a song by Propaganda, who is a poet / spoken word artist / rapper. And it's actually called Andrew Mandela. So I'll be playing that. You're invited to, like I said, if you need to take a bio break, do that. And if you could also reflect on the Jamboard for the sentence prompts I learned and I wonder.
And Brittany, if you can kick back host access to me, I would like to start the Facebook group with the art you're about to share. Yes. So I want to go live on Facebook before we show the art. Yes. So that'll be a nice way to gather them back.
Yes. The past few minutes on our Jamboard, just getting some reflections from those breakout sessions. And so as we get ready to head into our round table with Pastors Gabby and Andrew, I just wanted to share that reflection board with our Facebook audience and our Zoom audience. And also invite you all, if there were other reflections that you did not share on our Jamboard, just open up the mic for anyone who would like to reflect on what just happened in Breakout Rooms. Just open that up.
I have a question about the piece we just saw, which was phenomenal. Is there any relation to him and Nelson Mandela? No. The song is just called Andrew Mandela. So that's not his name. That's the name of the song. Yes, that's Propaganda, who's he's a Christian who is like a hip hop artist, and it's on one of his albums called Cricket. I had it reversed. I thought the song was called Propaganda, and I thought his name was Andrew Mellon. So I got you. I got it wrong. That also means I tweeted it wrong. So somebody fix it for me on Twitter. Okay, amen.
That's all right. He brings the spirit of Madiba.
But that was good stuff. Right. Would you mind dropping the Jamboard link in the chat again, please?
Sure.
Oh, actually, I'm sorry. I see you dropped it around noon. Okay, never mind. I can click there.
Perfect. Were there any reflections from the breakout rooms that anybody wanted to offer to the room audibly?
I'll share about the breakout room, COVID as an economic justice issue. And I really enjoyed being in this kind of section. And just to give you kind of like a picture of what happened in this breakout room, it started off as like economic issues, and then it went to kind of like more personal COVID responses or reactions. And then it went towards a faith-based kind of discussion, which I really enjoyed, to kind of trace from, okay, this is what's going on in the economy, this is what's going on with me personally, and then this is what I think God is doing in this moment. And I really enjoyed everyone who that I spoke with. And I think something that really stuck out to me is in the second group when we talked about shame culture and like receiving benefits, and like shame of just like sitting down and resting, or shame of like being unemployed, or just like shame of any kind of resources or anything that doesn't evolve around productivity. And I think that's really important for us to kind of get out of a capitalist mindset of like, you always have to be productive and working and doing something in order to receive funds, when you can literally receive funds from just sitting at home doing cryptocurrency. I don't know how to do it, but I know some people know how to, and they're receiving money from just like trading stocks and stuff of that nature. So I think one thing that I took away is being able to allow people to know that like it's okay to not always be productive, and productivity does not look like labor.
Help us today.
Trelany, you said a word. I'm sorry. Productivity does not look like labor. I'm tweeting that, and I'm gonna give you credit.
Well. Doom, 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 doom. Were there any other reflections? Hard to follow that, but were they? I'm sure there were other.
I definitely had a good time in the affordable housing room. I'll share out. So we started off really just really kind of talking about how in each room I lifted up that affordable housing in New York City feels like an oxymoron, feels like it is not possible to have that. And we really talked about just because you're able to pay your rent or your mortgage every month does not mean that it's affordable. Because when you really look at the percentage of your income that should be going towards your housing, it should be much lower, around a 30% or so margin. Many of us were at the 80 or 90% margin of trying to pay our bills just for our housing before we pay other bills in New York, if we are honest. And so one of the things that kind of started as a thought idea in the first session, and by the time we got to the second and the third, really felt like it materialized into something, is having the church have more of a kind of rolling index, like a Rolodex of sorts, and a directory of faith-based developers and faith-based realtors. Because while we may not be able to make the case from the bottom line of why affordable housing makes sense, there is a moral argument to be made for why affordable housing makes sense. And in each of the rooms, we talked about and kind of landed on, lawyers do pro bono work. What would it look like for realtors to do some degree of pro bono work every year? What would it look like for them to align with churches and adopt a family or two to try to get hardworking individuals, housing where they don't meet every requirement on paper, but everyone deserves a place to lay their head. And another thing that came up is that the jargon as it relates to real estate and trying to own and buy your own home and rent your own home can be so intimidating. So also partnering with folks who are willing to give a few hours every few months or so to help people actually understand what's due them, and break down, what it means to apply for something. Something can be handed to you, but if they hide it in 50 pages of paperwork that intimidates you, I mean, those of you who filled out grants, that, I mean, half of the folks don't apply for grants because the applications are intimidating, right? So just thinking about where we can crowdsource people of faith. People of faith exist in every industry. And if we can't appeal to them on the bottom line, can we appeal to them for uh, uh, a moral argument and a conversation around the common good, to try to get more individuals who live at or below the poverty line, or above the poverty line, but still are house poor, to use a word that came up in my conversation with George, to really help to make things more equitable. So every conversation in the rooms were fantastic, and they all really built on each other's. I think we landed on something that's worth exploring. So if y'all know any realtors, anybody who does real estate, who is a person of faith, send them our way for Double Love, because there might be some things that we can try to do our small part in to help find more housing for our folks.
Absolutely, I love that. Thank you, Pastor Gabby. Do we have a reflection from the children and childcare room by chance?
I'm happy to share a little bit about
Okay.
children child care room, and folks who rotate in can feel free to hop in if so. So it was a rich conversation. I shared some statistics and research from the Citizens Committee for Children on the lack of broadband access for children under 18 in New York City. We talked a bit about how a little under 500,000 children live in poverty in New York City, 60% of whom are Black or Latinx children. And that was kind of a setup for us to get into some of our stories and lived experiences. And we covered the map from a need for more arts education and childcare to be accessible and affordable, to sometimes there is childcare, but the programs don't deliver all of the enrichment and value in practice that they say they do, perhaps in advertising. So a bit of a kind of mismatch and incongruence there. Onto there's a really interesting thread in the first part of the conversation, or first rotation, that talked about children being seen and respected as kind of social and political equals, rather than items of to be spoken on behalf of and only be taken care of. So getting beyond the kind of adultism that has children as kind of decoration, but not, you know, actual decision makers.
That was good.
Well, a word, decoration and not decision makers. My goodness. Well, thank you all for partaking in our breakout rooms. At this time, I'm going to invite Trelawney to join me, and we're going to transition into our roundtable discussion. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to spotlight Pastor's video for everyone. All right, so Trelawney, let me get Trelawney on here. So we just wanted to take the opportunity to really discuss with the pastors economic justice in the context of the Double Love community. And so we've each prepared some questions, and we'll just alternate between the two of us. So to give you some context for those of you all who may be watching on Facebook Live, or if you go back and look at this video later, I am Brittany Pascal. I'm one of DLE's ministerial fellows. And we will be transitioning out. I'll let Trelawney introduce herself as well here at the end of June. And but we know that this work is far from over, and we also know that DLE is, as a church, is committed to this work. They've been doing this work really since they started, and now just want to be more intentional about the economic justice aspect of their mission and vision. And so since our time really as fellows, we've really been working on this as our kind of project. We started with our power mapping and organizing one-on-one training last month. But we just want to have a conversation with two people that we feel are both very knowledgeable about economic justice and pastoral leadership, and what it means to be faithful clergy members who are also engaged in their communities. So we're very, very excited to be here. Trelawney, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'll do a brief introduction. I'm Trelawney Joyner. I serve as a ministerial fellow alongside with Brittany. And then just to share that we both have a background in community organizing. So that's why this is very special to us, to kind of help give DLE the gifts and talents that we know. And then also we would love, I'm excited, and I know Brittany probably is as well, to see where DLE goes with creating this equitable economy for all God's creation.
Awesome. So the first question that we have, and like I said, we'll alternate. My first question for Pastor Gabby and Pastor Andrew is, tell us about the importance of economic justice in relation to DLE's vision. It's something that DLE hears every Sunday, and as we looked over that language, but it's actually explicitly named in your vision. So would you talk to us about that, and talk to us about why you as pastors see this to be important?
Absolutely. Would you like to take that?
Yeah, we can both go. Do you want to kick this off, or you want me to?
No,
to
go
do
ahead.
so?
Go ahead.
Happy to do so. It's a wonderful question. Thank you all for that. These questions are live, y'all. We didn't know the questions in advance, so this is live thoughts circulating here. I think a part of why it's important to lift up economic justice is because it's one of the, and in a holistic sense, it's one of the clearest themes in scripture. It's in the prophets, it's in the Psalms, it's in Proverbs that talk about how those who oppress the poor insult their maker. So there's a clear connection between economic oppression and theological hypocrisy. And positively stated, Jesus in Luke chapter 4 talks about the gospel being good news to the poor. We often talk about what it means to be poor in spirit and to not place a lot of stock in possessions. That's true. And that is an aspect of having a heart and a body oriented towards God. But there's also something economic and material about, folks being able to, as we've been talking about, knowing where you're going to sleep at night, knowing where your medicine is coming from, not having to associate economically induced anxiety as the enemy who can't be defeated, but rather social choice points in many cases and trends that can be pushed back and defeated. Just like we talk about putting down Goliath and confronting powers and principalities. Goliaths exist in our economy, and there's powers and principalities that can be exercised through a variety of methods. So that's some of what it is.
Yeah. And I would just also add, I think it's important to share that like a lot of Pastor Andrew's work is around creating this equitable economy. So some of you know, some of you don't, but Pastor Andrew is in the dissertation phase of his PhD in political science. And so political science and public policy is actually a discipline of his. He's also very, very active on several boards with the Institute for Christian Socialists and the Democratic Socialists of America. And socialism at its heart is about making sure that everybody has what they need, right? And so when you talk about starting a church, one thing that any church planter, church starter will tell you is that the DNA of the church really begins with the DNA of the leadership, right? The church becomes who it draws, right? So as all of you have come towards the vision, it has broadened who Double Love is, and that will continue to happen. But the origin story starts with the founders, and so a big part of our origin story is really trying to spread whatever goodness comes our way, whatever God gives us. It's important to us to spread that how we can. And so even before we were senior pastors, even as staff pastors, if there were opportunities that we could give to other people, if there were folks that we could train, if there were resources that we could provide, whatever we could do to kind of spread God's goodness around, we did. And so when you think about the vision of a church, the hope is that, one of my mentors told me a long time ago that if your church closes in your neighborhood and the neighborhood doesn't even notice it, you're not the church. You're just a social club that loves Jesus, right? So, I mean, one of the biggest impacts of being the church is making sure that you're attending to the needs of the people to the best of your ability. And so putting that in our vision statement and stating it every week is a reminder to us of the commitment we've made to do our best, to do our part of creating God's kingdom on earth as it is in heaven, and creating space where everyone has what they need, where we're not hoarding what we need, but we're giving it away. And for those that have walked with us for a long time, our first preview worship service for Double Love Experience Church, the sermon that we preached was on the principles of sowing and reaping. And how, when you have a harvest, right, when farmers have a harvest, they don't hoard all of their fruits and all of their veggies. They sell it off, right? That is the indicator of a good harvest, is getting rid of the fruit, because if you don't, it's going to expire anyway. And there's a rhythm of sowing and reaping. And so I believe that that's necessary when God gives and blesses, is for all, right? and the church should be a place, a clearinghouse to clear the goods that come in and send it back out to the community. And so this work is core to Who Double Love. I mean, loving the neighbor as we love ourselves can't happen without looking to find equitable ways for our economy to make sure that everyone has what they need.
Thank you. That was great. So now we want you all to kind of speak on your observations and reflections from today. So what is like standing out to you, and then also what questions what questions popped up in your mind, or even what ideas popped up in your mind as we participated in this economic justice forum today?
Yeah. For me, the red flag has been, first of all, I really valued the one-on-ones, to use the language that the fellows introduced to Double Love. But I really valued the time with most of my sessions were literally one-on-one with one person, no more than two. And what the light bulb that went off for me is that everyone has an opinion on these things because we're all living these things, right? So if nothing else came across for me today, even if you're not somebody who sees yourself as an economic justice expert, we all live through dimensions of this economy just to make it, which is why the art that you all shared with us was so powerful, which is why the tweet that we started off today was so meaningful, because whether we think about it or not, we all have to exist in this economy, right? And so what I loved was that on a Saturday morning with no prep, everybody had conversations that were running over time, that were spilling over the time, because we all have thoughts. And so what it makes me desire for us is that we can have more of this, so that as we kind of externalize our dreams, we can then put plans and policies and systems attached to it to try to make it happen. But the beauty of today is that y'all don't need to be prepped. It's already in you. We just need to hold more spaces for more private conversations to externalize the concerns that we all carry every day that we don't even always give space for. So that was powerful to me, and my biggest takeaway for today.
I am enlivened by these questions that they're so to the point. I'm grateful for them. One of the themes that are coming up for me, that there's so many. Certainly what Pastor Gabby is saying resonates. I was on a panel recently, and this economist Jessica Gordon-Nimhart made the point that we're all economists, and Pastor Gabby made that same point as well. Really demystifying who can talk about this sort of stuff is really key to getting towards solutions that work for us, because so often what happens is those who are the authorized talkers about economic justice create these half solutions that, even if they got all the money in the world, wouldn't provide housing for everybody who's homeless, wouldn't give a job to everyone who needs it. And under the language of realism and responsible budgeting, certain things are taken off the table. And so when we can kind of dream together and talk about, what have our experiences been with childcare, with surviving a pandemic. Lord have mercy, we've been here since March 2020.
Yeah.
Outside
15 months.
It feels almost like we've been on timeout and restricted from recess for 18 months, or however long it's been, and housing. And so hearing so many great actionable ideas is inspiring, specifically because it for me, what I find really energizing, it moves between the human level and the population level, because a lot of times economic injustice is seen as the misfortune of a particular person rather than a structural flaw that affects entire populations, an entire borough, an entire city. And so hearing our folks talk about that, and with candor, but also with a sense that economic injustice is not inevitable and we are not condemned to this fate is very hopeful.
Yeah, I think I appreciate both of what you said. I also think, and one of my favorite organizers and strategists, Adrienne Marie Brown, she always talks about the sentiment of it's in the room. And I think that a lot of times, like you said, this stuff is so mystified, right? It's so abstract, and the people who are actually experts are excluded from the room. We're excluding the true experts from the conversation, that would in turn lead us to more economic justice. So I think that's key. My next question would be, for both of you all, you know, the Forum for Theological Exploration, they often use the idea of the next best step when thinking about vocation and roles and forward movement, especially around innovation. What do you all see as DLE's next best step or steps around economic justice? And that can be the short term, tomorrow, that can be in 3 months. What do you all see as the pastors as the next best steps? And then I think then community wise, like collectively, as the next best steps around this economic justice idea and principle.
Yeah. You go first.
Yeah, love that question of the next best step. Well, one is, and this is for all of us in many ways who are able to do so, or feel compelled to do so. I want to acknowledge people who don't vote for reasons of conscience. I do not come to scold, but to acknowledge and hold space for that. But for those who feel so moved, there is a mayoral primary coming up in June. There's also the selection for folks in New York City, borough presidents, and a number of other folks are running who are making decisions about who housing is produced for and at what level, how we're going to, and on what timeline, try to recover and get the city back open from COVID, a number of other things. And so hopefully folks will, our prayer, this conversation will inform that in some ways. There's also, an opportunity to further put into practice some of those tools we talked about during the organizing training of having one-on-ones and conversations so that the dialogue doesn't stop here, but it keeps going and we're expanding the circles of who's already having these conversations, but we aren't yet talking to each other so that we can begin to build a bigger tent together. And then the third thing I said, and I'm sure Pastor Gabby has some thoughts here too. I think we have the opportunity to bring more than just a kind of faithful presence to these conversations as folks of faith, but I think we have the chance to be moral engineers who intervene in policy discussions with a new sense of designing systems that move in anti-capitalist directions so that these big picture solutions that we've all been talking about, housing at price points that people can get them, seeing a doctor in a way that doesn't break your pocketbook, your purse, or whatever satchel you throw your money in, right? We know what we need, and let's push for that together in legislation in New York City and Albany and elsewhere.
Yeah, I'm tweeting that. That's good. Yeah, I would say I think all of what he has said, I think another best next faithful step is more of this kind of series that the two of you have curated for us. The organizing one-on-one, and then a few weeks later, the forum. I think that packaging that you all have really wonderfully created, I think it's worth a lot of repetition with that. And so what I try to always remind myself is that we are still a new congregation. And I invite all of you who are a part of our congregation to remind yourself of that. Like, we are still new. So there's a million things we want to do. and we're still building systems, we're still building infrastructure, we're still building capacity, we're still building relationship. And so for me, I think a faithful next step is having enough of these conversations to where we've been able to cycle through all the core members of Double Love. Like making sure that everyone has had at least one of these conversations, and making sure those of you who are in this conversation come to the next one, so that it's expanding. So as opposed to it being 10 separate 3-hour conversations, is 300 hours of the bulk of our congregation who have sat dreaming and talking off script about how these issues impact us. Because to me, once we've done that, then we get to better understand what is our congregation passionate about, right? So when you think about churches that have been in existence for hundreds of years, you kind of know what every church on the corner does, right? That's the church that's going to advocate for this. If you got this problem, go there. If you got this problem, go there, right? But for new churches, we're creating that DNA. And that DNA doesn't get created without our members taking stake and sharing what they're passionate about. So for me, a next faithful step is taking the next, if it takes a year to have this same 1-2 punch that you all have given us the construction for, to be able to actually excavate how many of our folks feel. I think then it allows us to go into this work knowing that it's work that our church is passionate about, and not solely work that the two of us are passionate about, because it's similar and it's different, right? It's similar to know what your pastors are passionate about, but it's slightly different to know even what the church that they lead is passionate about, because the church is the body. So as the body and the members show up and take up space and share their voice, the church takes on an identity that we can't tell y'all what that identity will be. We can vision and plan and strategize, which is what we do. But the beauty of it all is when the people connect with the vision and the church begins to express what the church has passion for. So I'm excited to do this over and over again, and to each time go from 10 people to 20 people to 30 people to 40 people to 100 people to 200 people, where it continually grows and we have a really clear sense of how DLE can impact these issues, because these issues are not going anywhere. And so we're just getting started, in my opinion.
That's amazing. I love it. Final question, and this is just a open question of, is there anything that you would like to share about not only yourselves as pastors, but as DLE, as DLE's vision and mission, anything that you really want people to know about DLE and DLE's future?
Ooh, I love that question. Y'all know I love talking about vision, so that question excites me. I would want everybody to know, whether you're watching live with us on Zoom, on Facebook, whether you're following on Twitter, whether you're going to catch us on YouTube, if you are connected to Double Love right now, you are connected to the founding years of this church. And that is powerful. And I want everybody to own that, right? When you see a church that's been active, been around for 60 or so years, and somebody's like, yo, my mother was one of the founding members, that's y'all, right? Our fellows, y'all are some of our founding fellows, right? And so with that, this is a work that we're doing together, right? And I want you to wear that pride. I want you to wear that joy. I want you to wear that excitement. I mean, y'all are a part of something at the early stages that other folks, when they come along, will only be able to hear about, right? And so in that spirit, one of the reasons why we say our mission and our vision every week is so that y'all know like what drives this church. And literally, people have joined the church because they heard public health in the statement, and they're public health professionals. People have joined this church because they heard economic equality, an economic economy for all God's creation, right? And they're like, oh, that speaks to me. So a part of why we say it every week is because, it's going to be different buzzwords for each person, but that's what brings folks to the work. And also, I just want you all to know that, when you come to Double Love, however you get here, whether by recommendation, whether you know us, somebody else, you stumbled across us on social media, however you became a part of this family, you're a part of this family, and your voice matters, and your thoughts matters, and your dreams matter. And even though a pandemic has put screens between us, we know y'all, we pray for y'all, we know however many strengths you're willing to share with us, and we try to incorporate that as much as we can. So just know that you're a part of something new and major that later on other folks won't be able to say that. So let's use that for all that it's worth, so we can continue to become, who God has called us to be. So that's what I would say. I'll leave the rest, final response to you.
Well, that first one to say yay and amen to everything that you have said. In one of our conversations, we had a discussion about what it means for I think Reverend Dan may have made this point, to kind of raise the what if question. And one of the what if questions that kind of guides a lot of our praying, preaching, teaching, coalescing, Zooming together as we're doing right here. What would it look like to realize what I believe is God's dream, to be in a world where we can resolve our differences without resorting to, you know, prisons and detention centers and expelling kids from school. We talked about children's issues and children's rights. What would it look like to for everyone to have their own vine and fig tree to sit underneath, and for none to be afraid?
Preach,
as
Pastor.
the prophet Micah says. What would it look like to envision an economy where we don't have to make bricks without straw? And the translation, which is today, is expecting people to be independent contractors without health care, right? And to work just enough to have a fresh level of anxiety that's renewed every month when it comes time to take care of your essential expenses. I think a part of, not the only message, but one of the principal messages of God becoming incarnate in Christ that we see all throughout the Synoptic Gospels is that we cannot get to a divine sense of beloved community if the container is this capitalist filth, which just assumes that people will die as a result of poverty. The Columbia University's Mailman School of Public Health did a study recently that showed 895,000 people have passed as a result of social causes attributable to poverty. So this is not just an issue of misfortune and bad luck. This is an issue of coffins and caskets or life. And so that's what all of this equitable economy for all God's creation stuff is ultimately about. And it's not only the work of the church. Of course, there are other folks in the community with whom we need to be co-laborers. But certainly the church needs to be up along with others, lifting up the bloodstained banner. And we want to do our part.
Yes. Takes off running. I am just, I feel just honored to be able to just have this short conversation with you all. And I know that it's not a short conversation, that you all actually think about this intentionally and DLE. And it just excites me, like Trinity says, to think about what is coming for y'all, especially in this area. So I want to open it up to Facebook. I've got the comments up. If you had any questions, but also if you're here on the Zoom with us, if you had any particular questions before we wrapped our roundtable discussion, and you can either unmute yourselves or you can drop them in the chat.
Do we get to lift up hymns while we are waiting questions? Ever since I heard that, why is it so hard to make it in America? I felt a song. I'm not going to actually lift one up, but I felt one in my spirit.
You can lift up a number, a verse.
You can lift up a hymn, but we can't sing together because Zoom won't let us be great. It's going to echo back and forth. But you can lift up a solo. You got a solo in your spirit?
Well, you know, I don't want to sing a solo when we talk about, you know, being a chorus together and being go ahead.
Yeah, I know he really had some church vibes in that video, especially when he made that little turn at the end, the whole full body turn. I just felt
that video was everything. I'm a new fan.
That was the blues.
Fan.
Well,
Every choir needs a soloist, Pastor Andrew.
We know Pastor Andrew.
Try to poke and prod, Trelawney.
Every choir needs a soloist. So if you wanna start the hymn off.
Pastor Andrew lifted a hymn during the kickoff to Lent season walk.
He did.
I did.
This is the running joke, y'all. You know, we've been in pandemic church, so y'all haven't been here. But when we stop the recording, trust and believe every week at some point he has lifted up a song unto the Lord. Okay.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he keeps a song in his spirit.
Come on. Yes, I do.
Well, I would say this: if there are no direct questions, I know we've shared a lot of space today, so folks may not have immediate questions, but I just want to express our gratitude to the two of you. And if y'all in the chat can just help us throw up some emoticons, some love, something for Trelawney and Brittany. And I'm gonna just take a couple of seconds to love on y'all publicly. Of course, Fellow Sunday is coming in June. We have 2 this month, so this is not the end. They will be preaching for us. They're actually going to be flying them to New York, so they will be preaching in the DLE pulpit next month. But I want to take a moment to just express gratitude here because we were very intentional with our selection process for this year's fellow. We knew that we wanted to lean into this dimension of our vision, and we were looking for fellows who were able to lean more into the organizing and the community dimension development work of Double Love. And these two were so phenomenal. Y'all see, we have 2. We've never had 2 fellows before, but they were just so good that we literally were like, I mean, we got to find a way to have both of them. We gonna have to find a way. We gonna do some fundraising or something because we need both of them. And the way that they're both trained organizers and clergy, and the way that they have really brought both dimensions of who they are from Nashville and Atlanta has been absolutely phenomenal. And so we just really thank you all for your work, your organizing and your grassroots organizing with Double Love. This fellowship term has truly laid the foundation for us to be able to continue this work. And so thank you for bringing so much of yourself to this space. Though virtual, it feels like you've been physically here with us. And it really, truly will have an ongoing impact in the way that we do this kind of organizing and the way that we take the steps to make sure that everyone is seen and heard. So y'all just love on them because they're great. And we appreciate you all so much.
Thank y'all. I appreciate y'all so much.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to be there next month. I'm counting that down, actually. Trelawney, I'm gonna toss it to you. I know we wanted to do some next steps before we wrapped, and then we can toss it back to the pastors for closing remarks.
Okay. Yeah. So as far as faithful next best steps, oh Jesus. As Pastor Andrew mentioned voting in the mayoral primaries. For those who want to, we definitely respect people's agency and choice. And then also to kind of bring back what we presented for the Organizing 101, if you would like to power map your community, so that means finding the movers and shakers, and even those people who are like secret movers and shakers who are doing the work but aren't too constant about like showing it or having their names in newspapers. And then also you can do one-on-one conversations with these people. So finding out their interests and how you can potentially partner with each other to amplify your power. And then also you can join DLE Show Up Team that has been doing very amazing work before me and Brittany got here, and then during, and then they'll continue to do amazing work after. And then also you can attend your community board meetings. And these are just meetings where people sit around and have discussions about the issues in the community and ways they can collaborate together to rectify those issues. And it's always great to just have your voice heard when decisions are being made, because you never want to be like, well, this doesn't fit me personally, but then you didn't give them the opportunity to hear you voice those concerns. So definitely make sure that your voice is heard in all spaces in which you might be directly affected or indirectly.
Yes, and just before we turn it back over to the pastors, we want to thank you all for being here today. And you will get a follow-up email with this and some resources, with the recording and some resources. And all of the recordings are housed also on YouTube and on DLE's website, including the resource from the power mapping and one-on-one training. For those of you all who might say, well, I do want a power map, but I don't know how, you can go back and look at that training, and it is there as a resource. Thank you so much.
Incredible. Thank you all. And yes, the training, the one-on-one and power mapping training that Brittany and Trelawney led in April is on our DLE YouTube channel. So you can pull that up and kind of walk through that if you're trying to just kind of get your feet wet and get involved with that again. We're going to close out in prayer, but also I'm just going to let you all know you will be receiving an email from us thanking you for attending this, and also letting you know when the next kind of gathering for us will take place. We've been having uh, community organizing events once a quarter for our community engagement work. And so we had our DLE teach-in in January. Many of you were with us for that. It was an overnight 4-hour teach-in that Pastor Andrew and I led. We had our DLE Imagination, DLE Dreams event led by Shanae and Ken from the Show Up team in February. And then we've done the training and we've done this as well. And so look out for an event that we'll be doing in the fall to kind of pick this back up. And then throughout, of course, the mayoral term, we'll also be having maybe some impromptu conversations as folks begin to ready themselves to prepare to vote for our incoming mayor. We've already been contacted by candidates who are interested, and we have told them, hold on a second. We want to make sure that our folks can decide and think for themselves first. So lots to come. Also, lastly, while we have you, two very exciting things coming up. I want you to mark your calendars. Sunday, June 6th will be our Double Love Experience Dreams Sunday, where Pastor Andrew and I are going to be, yes, it is in the spirit of DLE Dream Night, but it's actually going to take the place of the entire worship service. And so we are going to spend some time walking you all through how it'll be right at the 18-month mark of our church. So we'll talk about what we've accomplished this 18 months and what we see coming forward in the next 18 months. So make sure you're there for that. And there's going to be some announcements about some things we're doing this summer. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that as well. And then lastly, we are really excited. We have a colleague, an African-American colleague who specializes in Arab and African relations. He has been doing work in Palestine for many, many years. And so we have been in conversation with him, and we're going to be setting up a very special Bible study where he will be in conversation with us so that we can discuss what's going on right now with our brothers and sisters. And so, you know, this work is international. It is not just domestic. And so we'll be having that conversation very soon. It will take the place of one of our Tuesday Bible studies. It'll be within the next 2 weeks. So make sure you're on our listserv. Make sure you are getting our information and updates because we have a lot coming forward this summer and we don't want you to miss any piece of it. So with that, I believe we are ready to pray out and close. Thank you all for hanging with us. Y'all hung with us the entire time. Y'all are dope. I love it. I love it. That 3 hours went by very fast, but we didn't expect that everyone would remain. So thank you all for kicking it with us the entire time. And yeah, let us pray out and go forth. Pastor Andrew, would you mind closing us out with a word of prayer?
Sure, happy to do so. Every head bowed, every eye closed. And as we say in Baptist context, every heart focused on the Lord. Good and gracious God, we thank you for being the source of every good and perfect gift, including the gift of justice to be experienced not only in the economy, not only throughout all society, but within our congregation, within our relationship with ourselves. God, help us to deal generously and justly with every facet of reality and existence that we encounter, and as a response to how restoratively you deal with us, God. The Psalms teach us that you do not deal with us according to our faults, but God, you instead shower and treat us with loving kindness, with your hesed, with your care, with your covenantal compassion. So God, help us to be those who would embody your love, embody your mercy, embody your justice. God, help us to take from this time, this forum, the lessons that we've learned, the questions that we've raised, the art that has lit a fire under our souls. God, and help us to do the particular things that you've called us to do, God. We neither want nor are able to do everything, but there are those things, those good works which you have prepared before the foundation of the earth, say the scriptures, to be our way of life and to be the path that we can walk personally and collectively as a church to do this work of justice, loving mercy, and walking humbly with you. Let us do those things, God. In Christ's name, we pray, and in Christ's name, we find our strength and our support. Amen. And God bless you. Y'all have a great Saturday.
Amen. Blessings to everyone. Take care.